Okay, at the moment, all we've made is a Google form. To turn it into a quiz proper, we now need to take advantage of the fact that a Google form quiz can mark some of the answers for us and can give feedback. So in this video, we'll do the marking first. So here's a question. How many sides does a hexagon have? I've decided it's multiple choice. I've given the answers, and one of those answers is the correct one, and the other three aren't. And so I can have Google Forms mark this for me. So once I've written the questions and the answers, all I need to do is click on Answer Key at the bottom. And it says how many points should the student get for getting this answer correct, and I've defaulted that to 1 in the settings already, but if you haven't defaulted it to 1, you can just change it with the up and down arrows here, and then you need to click on the correct answer to put it as the one that will be marked as correct by the system. If there is more than one answer, you can have more than one answer. Just use that with care, because you might find that it doesn't give you as much information as you were wanting unless you've perhaps got more than 4 answers, or that you've properly structured them to be good hinge questions. So I'll leave that as 6 and I'll click on done, and now whenever the students submit an answer to this question, the system will mark it for me and either award them 1 point or 0 points. Here's another question, which I could have as multiple choice, but I'm using it as an example of a more open-ended question. So I want the students to type an answer now. Now, my advice to you, as I've said in a previous video, is not to use the short answer questions, because if you do short answer questions, Google Forms will attempt to mark it and generally struggles on 2 fronts. One, it's difficult to have the AI system mark a short answer question anyway, simply because of the variability of the student answers. And the second is because it tends to mismark them by marking correct answers as wrong, even when it should be marking them as correct. It's a bug in the system. So just to address the first thing first, the answer to this question might be that you're expecting the word protractor. So you could go into your answer key and you could put that your correct answer is protractor. Except that it's literally going to mark those characters as the correct one. So you also need to put in protractor, and you also need to put in protractor, because kids are kids. You should probably also put in protractor with all the different spellings as well, unless you're going to decide that those are wrong. Then you also get students who will write a protractor, or maybe a protractor, or maybe a protractor. So you can see that the combinations rapidly get out of hand. So even if there wasn't a bug in the system in which even the correct answers are being marked incorrectly sometimes, it's still causing you a headache to think of all of the different permutations that a student could write, even for a one-word answer. My advice would be that when we look at how we can manually mark some of these things, that it's very quick to just do it yourself, and easier than relying on a system which often mismarks the correct answers. So let's get rid of all of these, and instead we'll still assign it 1 point, but we're going to manually mark the answers ourselves, and we're going to change it to a paragraph answer so that it doesn't mark it itself. The system won't accept an answer for anything but a short answer question, so you can't put a correct answer in there. Okay, let's have a little look at how the marking works. So we've told the system what the correct answer is. Let's just have a look at how it marks them. So here's a multiple choice question. The students had to pick the correct graph, and what I look at is I click on responses, and then I go to question, and I can scroll through the questions in turn for each question. So the way I would do this marking it is I would mark all of one question, then all of the next question, and then all of the next question. Here's one that the system has marked for me. So I told it that the correct answer was C. There are 8 responses that came in at C, and they've been marked by the system. and I can overrule that if I want to, but it has been done already. And then here are the incorrect answers, and I can see from my perspective that more students picked answer E than answer C, and so I need to address that with the class as to why this was such a common incorrect answer. And so there's data for me formatively in that, but I show it to you as an illustration of system marked answers. If we pick a different question, however, so let's pick a simpler one. So the first question, define the farad. So they were supposed to give me an answer here, but it's difficult for the system to mark that. So I can now mark all of question 1A very quickly. I just click the wrong or the right button. There's the student answer, and I just quickly go down this going tick or cross. If it's out of 1 mark, it just gives them 1 mark. If it's out of 2 marks, I can assign more than 1 mark. You can assign the number of marks that you want to give them. If more than 1 student has typed exactly the same answer, the system does group it together as well, which is quite good because it reduces the amount of different responses that you have to mark. Just a note that this is technically my mark scheme here, and it is there because that's the feedback that I have written for the students to receive. More about that in the next video. Okay, if we just pop back to our example quiz. Once I have done my marking for the manually marked questions, the non-multiple choice ones, I can now click onto the individual tab. And I can scroll through each student and see a summary of how they did. So this is the random answers that I put in one of the earlier videos. I scored 4 out of 10. I can now release the score back to the student by clicking on this button. And in actual fact, I can release it to everyone at the same time. And when I do that, all of the students receive an email that states what their score is, and if I've allowed it in the settings, they'll be told which questions they got right, which questions they got wrong, receive their feedback, and we'll come to feedback in the next video. But that's kind of the final step in the manual marking system. I'll show in another video how you can collate all of the scores into a spreadsheet so that you can put it into your mark book. However, that's probably enough in terms of showing what the correct answers is and the marking system, and what I'll go on to in the next video is how to give feedback to the students.